I've already started it.
There you go.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
So I don't have any questions before we get started. Jake, I understand that the customer or potential customer here is a fixed wing only, because if so, I can kind of try and shape the demo a little bit more towards the fixed wing side.
Yeah, for sure. So actually, I'll give you a background. We kind of have, I'm going to leave out locations right now, but we do have a hospital-based customer, and we are starting a fixed-wing air medical service with them come April 1st. So it is currently fixed-wing only, but we will be approaching more potential facilities, more potential partners in the future.
Okay.
So we'll definitely be looking at this as a potential add-on and expansion platform for as we continue, but fixed wing only right now.
Okay, perfect. Well, most of what we're gonna do, so I guess I'll just kind of tee it up and we'll get going here. So as Scott mentioned, I'm gonna kind of go through the demo. My role at Flight Vector is I handle training and implementation for new customers. My background, I came from a hospital-based air medical program. That was both fixed wing and rotary. I managed that program for about 5 years. So before I was doing this for Flight Vector, I was a Flight Vector customer. So as we're going through here, please feel free to interrupt, ask questions. I don't take offense if you say, whoa, stop, back up, hold on, I want to see that again, or whatever. Just please feel free and let me know. There's no real format to what it is that we're going to be doing today. And then
great, appreciate that. What program?
Airlift Northwest.
Oh yeah, okay, nice. Got the West Coasters, neat.
Yep, yeah. So and it was some fairly long range stuff with fixed wings. So again, I think that we'll be able to kind of show you a little bit about what it is that we can do, and then like I said, ask questions along the way.
Yeah, sounds good, sir.
All right. So what you're looking at right now, this is version 6 of our latest CAD, and it's the most current version that we have right now. This is .8. And have you ever seen Flight Vector before?
Yeah, I have. It was the older version, but Kyle has not.
Okay, so you've seen like version 5. Okay, so version 6 kind of started where 5 left off, and we just kind of took it really to the next level. The biggest thing is customization. You'll probably hear me mention customization several times today, and that's only because we really highlight that as a huge plus for our system. We're doing stuff that no other CAD vendor can do, and we're also taking feedback from our customers and making changes based on our customer feedback, which in this industry, for air medical CAD, and when you start getting into that type of specialty, you're going to have a hard time finding anybody that is as engaged with their customers as we are. So what we're looking at here is this is one variant of thousands of different ways that this can be set up. So if you wanted different windows in different places, we can do that. This is just something that I like to use that kind of highlights all of the features of our CAD on really one screen. This can be stretched out onto 2 or 3 monitors if you want. You can have multiple windows open at the same time. So really the options for how you set this up are endless. So what I've done is I've got it set up kind of in a configuration where we're looking here at active rotary assets, and I've got some filtering applied just to look at what I call my airlift units, because that was home for me. So I like to go back to home as far as when I do demos and talk. So I've just got a few of the helicopters and a couple of the fixed wing assets on here. But what you can see as I move across the top here is I've got all these tabs set up. These are all the different units that I already have in the system. You can create filtering to where if you just want to show backup units or out of service assets, you can do that. An all asset window, ground units. So I know for your particular application with a single fixed wing, you probably wouldn't need to do a lot of this up here. But again, in looking towards the future and expandability, we have the ability to add all these custom tabs. Now, the other thing is you hear me say we have the ability. The reality is what happens is once you become Flight Vector customers, I teach you how to set all this up. So you're not relying on us to configure your CAD for you. We don't believe in that. We think that it's best that you guys as customers have the ultimate control over this thing, and we want you to really take ownership of it. So So we're here along the way to help you anytime with our 24-hour support. You know, for the big things that maybe need to happen right now. Otherwise, during the regular, you know, work days, we've got people around, myself included, the rest of our support team that can all help with helping you get these things configured as we go. So again, we're here for you. Now, looking at the left side here and looking at units, I'm just going to double click on one of my fixed wing units right now and show you the amount of information that you can start to store in here. We can store everything from phone numbers to amount of time, lift times, what people call them, or pad times, how long it takes you from the time that the asset is assigned till they're off the ground. We can enter all of that information in there so that it helps the people sitting in the chair running the CAD to give the most accurate ETAs as possible. Now, I know with fixed wing it's a little bit difficult because you're going airport to airport, but again, we have some strategies on how to work through that and some recommendations that we can do to your process as far as getting those things up and running. So essentially here we can interface with tracking. So depending on what type of tracking it is that you're using, whether it's Sky Connect or OuterLink or SkyTrack or Blue Sky or almost any of the commercially available tracking services, we can get that data brought directly into the CAD system. And that also really helps when you start doing your billing, because we're doing our measuring of distance from point to point. So each time your aircraft reports a position, we're capturing that in the CAD system, we're showing it on our map, and then at the end of the call, the CAD system generates the patient loaded miles so that you can send those right over to billing.
Nice.
So as you see, moving down through here, we just have...
Does that capture, does that have the ability to capture ground mileage? Like if we taxi for 2 miles and we're loaded with a patient for departure, or would we need a separate device in order to track that?
Nope, we capture all the ground mileage. So when you're taxiing, once the communicator, the key there is that the pilot needs to tell the communicator, hey, we are departing. So then the communicator will put the CAD into a status that shows departed, and it will start capturing all of those breadcrumbs that it's dropping, all the positions for taxi.
So there's an actual device we put in the cockpit of the airplane that measures this then.
So in the aircraft, depending on which vendor you go with, you would have to have some type of a connection to, like, Sky Connect is a very common one, or OuterLink is another very common one. So there is some type of an avionic, or well, it's not avionics. I take that back. There is a box that needs to go in the aircraft.
Yeah,
okay.
SpiderTrack is another big one. Who do you guys have the least amount of issues with?
We can work with any number of them. SpiderTracks we work with just fine. We have several customers that use SpiderTracks.
Okay, who is your guys' preferred vendor?
I don't know if we have one, Scott.
Yeah, I just think it's tough to say because we've worked with all of them quite well. I mean, early on it was Sky Connect because they kind of had the market on that, but OuterLink has come forward with a good product. Blue Sky Network has come forward with a good product. You know, some of our customers have gone the route of SpiderTracks and Track Plus, so they have something that they can take in and out of the aircraft. So we work with those, and those do fine. It's tough to say a preferred one because they're so spread out amongst all of our customers that they all seem to work quite well.
Okay, good to know.
Which is a good thing.
Yeah, in my experience too, as Scott said, they all seem to work quite well. The most commonly used ones, so the larger programs, are definitely using the OuterLinks and the Sky Connects. But then what we start to see is with smaller programs, we might see a combination of things. We might see where some people, depending on how you set it up, are you guys looking at going with your own Part 135, or are you looking at using somebody else's?
We've got our own.
Okay, so then it's really up to you. It's purely a matter of preference. What we do say is, if you were to come across a new system that's out there that we maybe haven't worked with before, great. Let us know and give us the opportunity to start working with it. That's one of the, again, advantages to us, is we're going to work with you as a customer when you bring us equipment that you say, hey, we want to use this for our tracking.
Okay.
So So what you see here is basically last known position. We've got our crew members that we have currently assigned to the aircraft. Any pending crew members that were coming up, we could enter here as well. So if we knew that the new pilot was going to be, let's say our new pilot was going to be Dave McKenzie, then we can simply put them in. So when the CAD changes the crew, it automatically moves the old crew member out and puts the new crew member in, provided the aircraft is at base. We also have the ability to select multiple customized paging groups, and different paging events can happen off of different things. So for instance, when the aircraft is assigned, it can send a paging event. When the aircraft departs, it can send another paging event. And again, it can be to any of 5 pager groups. Now, you don't necessarily need to look at what these are labeled over here. These are just simply labels that we put in here. But if you wanted to have a pager group that was nothing associated with the mechanic, you could have a different pager group here. So again, we have the ability for 5 different groups for each aircraft.
And that's a VoIP type of service?
So our paging works on a couple of different ways. We offer an SMS service, so people can communicate two-way with the CAD. A lot of people using smartphones are using the SMS. We also have the ability to use SMTP as far as connectivity, and then depending on what you're using for paging, we can even go the WCTP route or other commercial, the old school alphanumeric pager providers. We can also connect with those.
Okay, so it's SMS based. Do you guys do auto calls too, or is it just the SMS based, text based?
What do you mean by an auto call?
The voice over IP. So essentially, a paging event turns into a phone call, essentially automated phone call.
Yeah, we don't have that functionality right now. But we would send it over the SMS as an SMS message.
Right, text. Okay, I apologize. I thought you guys were VoIP.
No, and I know our providers that we use to send and receive those SMS messages have, I believe, that capability. We just haven't used it.
I don't know if anybody's asked for it, have they, Scott?
No, no one has.
Yeah. So again, there's something where if that was something that you guys wanted to explore, then it would be a simple, hey, we would like to try and figure out how to get this in. We start working with our development team and take a look at what it would take and if it's something we're able to do.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
So yeah, absolutely. So then again, looking here, you can restrict the aircraft to call types. So if you had multiple call types with different aircraft, you could say, okay, I want to restrict it. I don't want this aircraft to be able to do a scene PR flight because it's a fixed wing. So we could select this, and then we could uncheck or check whichever appropriate call types. These call types, by the way, are completely configured by you. You get to decide what these are called. So we can select which ones, or we don't want any restrictions. We can just uncheck the box. We also have the ability, depending on how you guys operate, to assign specific teams. So let's say you're in the hospital and in the morning you've got a NICU team, you've got an adult cardiac team, and then maybe you've got just your standard team. We have the ability to track multiple different teams in here. So let's say that you were going to get a NICU patient, you would assign the aircraft, and then you could also assign the appropriate team. So it takes it to the next level as far as being able to keep track of the crew. If you were going to have multiple different crew members for different teams, we have the ability, again, to support that. And those can be assigned as part of the assignment process as well. These fields down here that you see are all custom fields. This is set up to where you can enter the door width and door height, maximum patient size, again, with the goal here to help your communicators be able to quickly be able to figure out which aircraft you're going to use. Depending, again, on the platform that you're using, you might have some more rigid restrictions for one airframe versus the next, and we're able to keep track of all those different types of airframes and different types of information. For the purposes of this demo, the 2 fixed-wing aircraft that I have set up are notional Pilatus PC-12s, but that's just, you can enter any type of aircraft in here that you wanted to.
That's fine. That's actually our airframe. So.
Okay, very good. Yeah, great. Well, good choice. So moving along here, what we have is the bread and butter obviously is patient and flight management. And so when you want to create a new call, there's several ways that you can do it. The most common way to do it is simply by clicking on the light bar up here, and this brings up what we call our call intake field. Now this is completely customizable by you, and you'll see that if I select a different call type from inter-facility to scene, the information that we obtain is also different. Because obviously for different types of calls, you have different types of information that you need to get. Now, since you're talking fixed wing, most, if not all of your transfers, I'm assuming are going to be inter-facility. And so you would set up a simple process here where who's the requester. So in my example, I'm going to say that it is Yakima Valley Memorial. So I'll go ahead and select that. Who is the receiver? Where is the patient going? And then again, you can capture all of the information here, who you're talking to, what their role is, where the patient is going in this instance, since this is the receiver. So they're going to the burn unit, room 408. Any additional radio frequencies, callback phone numbers, the receiving physician, and even their phone number if you wanted to. So then you could actually send them paging information if you so desired. So you get all this stuff entered, and then I've selected, I just want a real basic patient mask here because the criteria I want my team to worry about before we get the aircraft started, all we really need to know is how much does the patient weigh so we can determine if we can safely transport this patient. And then what we do is after this, we can select OK, and this creates the call. And so it creates our call type up here. And when we double click on this, now it brings up much, much greater information. We start talking about flight plans. We start talking about timestamps. Again, completely customizable by you as far as what you want to show up here. So when the pilot calls back and says, yeah, I'll take that flight, you click this button. And we log all of this over here in this window here, which is just all this text. You also have the ability to enter a generic comment and save that to the log independent of any of these timestamps. Now you'll also see a series of timestamps down here. These are associated with the patient. So with the flight, you see that we've got certain information that's related to the pilot and flight checks and ETAs. But then we also have specific information to the patient, like ambulances, bed availability, maybe physician acceptance would be one that we would have down here. And again, completely configurable as to as little or as much information as you want to show up down here.
So go back to the ambulance one.
Yeah.
Is that just a timestamp, or does that bring up a separate window for ambulance services for the receiving area?
Good question. So that's just a timestamp. What will happen is when we assign an asset to the call, we'll see another window here that says ground transport. And that is where you would document all of your ground transport information from the airport to both the receiving and the sending facilities.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll wait till you get there. So thank you.
Yep. Nope. Thank you. Good question. Repeating schedule. This allows you to create repeating requests for patients that you might transport on a fairly regular basis. This is not overly applicable in the air world, but it is something that we offer here. It's very commonly used for a lot of ground companies that are using our program for ground. The flight plan, right now we've got two legs. We've got the pickup hospital and the receiving hospital. Now this is going to fill out as we get going here and creating this call. The custom tab, this is just, what this is designed to show you is we can add any number of custom tabs along here that would have other specific information. You could have other specific questions regarding the flight if you wanted to. Again, completely customizable. The closest assets, now we haven't done a search yet, so this is not populated, so this will fill in a minute. And then the history log, this is one that basically I like to call this the sneeze log or the kitchen sink. This catches everything that happens with this flight. It captures changes that happen with it. It captures all of the times. It's basically the tell-all for everything that happened. Now, as we open up the patient here, this is where we start to customize even more patient information. So this is where we would enter our patient's name, their date of birth, and age if we didn't know it. And we also, you see the weight that we entered on that original screen came over here to this section, and we're also just doing a quick conversion for kilograms. Now this is one way to set this up. The nature code, you know, what are we doing here? Well, we'll say we're going to get 3rd degree burns. And then you start typing what happened. You can also document any number of things in here. Now, again, similar tabs, patient information, completely customizable. You can have as much of this or as little of this as you want for what your call takers are getting from the requesting party. This times tab, these are all those times that are associated only with just the patient. So we have those set up here as well. The plan, so where the patient is being picked up and going to, this will fill out more once we get some waypoints in here for the airports. And then this is that ground transport tab that I was talking about. And I'll show you that once we get the aircraft assigned. Now, the other thing that I want to show is I want to show this. Now, obviously, this is not an OB patient, but if it were an OB patient, then we've created this custom tab in here to show you what you can do if you have a specific line of questioning that you want your call takers to engage in as part of the OB intake. So again, maybe you have this for complex cardiac patients. Maybe you have this for your NICU transports. Again, the sky is really the limit on what it is that we build and create in here. You can add as many of these as you want as far as tabs go. So some customers are using this as their call intake guide for all of their stuff, where they'll have a different tab for different kinds of patients, or some are just keeping it very generic and using a screen like this. So we have all these different tabs that we can build, keeping track of ETEs, ETAs, what your communicators are telling the requester. Again, you can set it all up for that. If you're working with multiple different vendors, you can have different tabs for different vendors as well. So we'll go ahead and we'll go through this. And now I'm going to do a search here. And so what this is telling me now is, okay, this is our search window. I want to search for just fixed wing aircraft. So this is telling me right now that my closest aircraft is this Airlift 60. And the reason that I know they're closest is because they're based in the community that I put this call. So let's say that they weren't there and we were coming out of a different location. So we'll go with this Airlift 50 and we'll say, okay, yeah, we'll select that asset. This brings up a paging and crew assignment screen. So this is going to bring up, hey, yeah, this is the crew. Oh, wait, nope, that medic is not on this aircraft. We need to put a nurse on here. And we know that that nurse is Jessica DeVers here. So we'll select that. Are we starting? We're starting at the current position, which is at the airport. Do we want to include a return leg? Well, in this instance, we don't, because that's the airport we're going to land back at for this patient, and we want to launch the aircraft. So we're going to go ahead and hit OK. And now a series of paging is going to happen. 100% customizable as far as what you want to go out here. This paging event happens to be triggered off of when the asset was assigned to the call. So now when we come back down here, now you see we've got a flight plan from Boeing Field to the Yakima Airport back to Boeing Field. We've got estimated times that it's going to take, estimated times of arrival. So your communicators can talk real time when they're requesting those ground resources, or when they're talking to the sending facility saying, yep, we'll be there in about 25 minutes. Now that 25 minutes is not taking into account any ground time for this aircraft, so it's only looking strictly at flight time right now. Now going back to our...
I'm glad you made that comment. Can you customize that, or are these times built in? Do we build on the back end our timing?
So what we're looking at right now, yeah, it's automatic based on, and it's a simple math calculation. It's looking at the distance from airport to airport, and then I've configured this to say that a Pilatus PC-12 flies at 260 knots.
Right. Is there a way to add like a 20-minute ground time for launch?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we would do, if we knew that there was a 20-minute ground time, I would just say right here that our pad time is 20 minutes. And then what I'll do is I'll remove, now you see automatically, look what it did. It just changed it to 44 versus the 24 that it was. Because now it's taking into account that pad time.
And then, so let's just say we had the two separate crews on. Could we segregate or create a separate ground delay time for a medical crew versus a NICU crew? So like 30 minutes for NICU or 20 minutes for ground, regular.
Yep, and what you can. What I would do in an instance like that is I would configure the CAD. When we look at call types, I would configure the CAD with like a NICU call type. And then in that NICU call type, I would add an additional amount of pad time for NICU of an additional 20 minutes. So if we have an additional 20 minutes, say for inter-facility flights right now, I don't know if it's going to live. It's probably not going to live update right now because it was assigned afterwards. But if we were to remove this asset and reassign it, then what I'll do is then I'll show you if we remove it and we reassign it, now you'll see that the time is going to change because it will change now based, it's an hour and 3 minutes based on that. We said it takes 20 extra minutes for an inter-facility call.
That's nice.
And when we hover over that, it also is going to tell us. So if we're looking for the closest asset, it's going to tell us when we hover over it here why the ETA is an hour and 1 minute. So 20 minutes on the ground at base, 20 of which is pad time. We have a call time, and then we're 42 minutes en route based on the call time. So it breaks it down for you.
That's really nice.
Yeah, it's a nice feature again for your communicators, especially if you're bringing in new people that are new to the industry, new to the business. They don't need to. I know it sounds funny, but doing some of this math when you're on the phone with that requester and you've got it feeling the stress of it, it's not easy sometimes. And so it's nice that we break it down to you here. So now once we've got this call created, and this is where your pilot would say, okay, we're closing the door and we're departing. So you could put them in a depart status, and that's when we start capturing those breadcrumbs for your mileage. Now, the other thing that I'll show you is now when we come back into this screen here, now you see all of a sudden that ground transport component that we were talking about. So now it's saying, hey, you need a ground vehicle because we don't know, the CAD doesn't know how the patient is getting from the hospital to the airport, or if your crew is getting from the airport to the hospital. So you would select this and you would tell it which agency. Now I don't have any agencies configured here, but if I start to get rid of, then we start to see, okay, well, AMR, here we go, Spokane. We select them and then we say, okay, this is at the pickup ground transportation, and we go okay. So now that's all logged in the system.
Right. So then you guys have the numbers and everything pre-database, or is that going to be a back-end build for us? Probably depending on your client load.
That would be part of your build. And that's an excellent question. So depending on what your customer has for data right now, do they have any kind of a CAD, or are they doing anything, or is this completely from scratch?
It's going to be considered from scratch.
Okay.
But are we able to copy and paste databases from existing clients that you guys have if they're in the area?
So if you were to talk to them and they were agreeable to provide you with their data, then that's something that we could do. We would not, as a company, just go in and grab the client's data, because our customers own their data. We don't. So if you were to work with,
so like AMR out of Spokane, Washington, just the ground ambulance data for what services are available in Spokane, that's not free for all. We'd have to get an agreement.
Correct, because that is completely up to each organization what they choose to enter in there. Some organizations might have private contracts or contact numbers that are dedicated just to them. So again, if that was something that you worked with a partner agency in the area and they wanted to provide, we could help you with that data export and then import into your system.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, but to answer your question in a little more detail as well, these are all entered on the front side here. You don't need to do it on the back side. It's all very easy to enter through the UI itself. So you don't need to have any strong database knowledge to be able to do this.
Yeah, no, fair enough. So with that then too, ground ambulance, is there area like to put in like recurrent credit card information? So like if AMR out of Spokane required payment up front, are we able to store that info for the dispatcher?
Absolutely. So if we come up here and we go to edit agencies and we go to AMR Spokane, we have a notes section right here. You could enter that information right here in the notes section. And then that is available when we go back to our call. When we're looking at AMR right here, that information is right here as well. Anything that you entered in that field. So you could enter credit card number, open up asset, or open up agency information for details.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, what we really strive to do in configuring the system is we really strive to give you the ability to set it up for how it's going to work best for your operation, because we know no one operation is the same as the next. And so we just have this myriad of features so that you can set things up. We don't want your teams to have to look to multiple different resources when they're doing this. We have really gone to a lot of effort to show that this system is where you can store a majority of your data and a majority of your information. One-stop shopping, So this is a good time probably now. The pilot calls and gives a departure, so you can enter the amount of fuel and fuel load if they're giving you that. Being as that you're your own Part 135, you're going to want to keep track of obviously your manifests and all of that things. And Steve's going to come in and talk to you a lot more about Flight and Duty Tracker, where a lot of that data is captured. So this is something that your communicators are entering. You see IFR or VFR here. You know, most of your fixed wing flights are going to be IFR, so we can default it to that. And so then once we say okay here, we tell it that it's departed. Now the system sees the aircraft as being, quote, you know, on the call or in the air. And then this is where I'll take a minute to show you about our map. And our map is one of the best mapping products that I have found for this line of work. Before I used the Flight Vector CAD in my communication center, I used the map before that for about a year and a half. So we have multiple different ways you can display the map information. Now you see that the asset appears to be moving on my screen, and that's because we have configured this CAD that I'm working on to project where it thinks the aircraft is based on its anticipated speed, position, heading. Now, if we had tracking associated with this aircraft, you would actually see where the aircraft is going based on the tracking increments, and you could see where it is. So,
and if we didn't have a tracking component set up right away, you guys would be able to configure our CAD to do the same.
Exactly. And the other thing is, yeah, for sure. And the other thing is too, if you're using, let's say you're using FlightAware, if you don't have your asset blocked right away and you're using FlightAware, your communicators can get that information from FlightAware, and then you can enter a manual position report as far as where the aircraft is. Now, that's obviously going to be really important for you guys when you're doing your patient legs, because that's where your billing is going to be driven from, right? Your loaded miles. So some type of position reporting, or if you just have your pilot reporting the overall miles, something, but you're going to make sure you've got that component figured out. But you can manually enter it here if you wanted to do that as well. So additionally, with the map here, yes, you could configure it to do exactly what it's doing right now. You also see as we move out here a little bit that, and I think I turned a bunch of stuff off. Let's see, NextRads are on. Okay, so we have the ability to get weather, airspace. We have the ability to get obstacles. We can declutter the map a whole lot too. If you don't want to see a bunch of that stuff, we can turn it off. TFRs will pop up on our map. So if you are going to an area where there's a TFR, the CAD will warn you that there's a TFR for that location. Additionally, like this one down here near Sacramento, we can click on, and the CAD is going to provide us with information on this TFR. And we get our information from the FAA. So this gives you all the information on who to contact, and then what the procedures would be if you had to fly through there. So again, it's all right here at your fingertips for your communicators. If the TFR is pending, but not active, but it's been published, our system, and here's one right here in Texas. You see we have this gray ring, and when we click on this, it will also give us information on the TFR that is pending for when it will be active. So that's for rocket launch and recovery, January 23rd, beginning the 22nd at 13:30. So again, the information, there's tons of information here. Now, if we go back up to where our call is, and you see we have weather reporting, so we can get the most current weather and weather information as well. I turn those off. Let's turn them back on. And looks like we're having a layer overlay. We can get weather. I'm not sure where weather is. I saw it just a second ago. Let me log back into it. There we go. Just took it a little bit to come up. So you can see when we can click on this location here that's got weather, and this is going to give us the latest METARs and TAFs for that location. It's also going to break it down in plain language because, again, depending on your audience, some people may not be used to reading these. And frankly, I can't remember half the time what this last section even means. But what I do know is that, oh, this is nice because it breaks it down and it's saying, uh-oh, some data may be inaccurate because it's got the $ after it. So those that are non-aviators don't need to memorize what those mean. They can just get that down here. So we also do capture NextRad data. So we're getting NextRads from the FAA as well. And so that will show you the updated weather information, and you can see NextRads here. Just as if you had XM weather in the aircraft, we're getting that same data. So depending on the extent and level that your communicators like to kind of, geek out with stuff, you can see a lot of information here. You can see wind direction. You can see, are we light IFR? Are we hard IFR, VFR, marginal VFR? Different colors mean different things. So I would show you, if you were rotary, I would show you, we can create calls from the map. We can look for any location that we want to on the map. It uses Google Maps as its source of data. So we're able to go to Google and find locations, zip codes, addresses. Sometimes, if you're going to a call for rotary and you get a request to a generic location, say they wanted us to the Natchez area, you can just enter that generic location and the CAD is going to look for the closest available assets to go there. You can simply right click on the map and create a call as well. So you right click, create from scene, and then you see we'll go back to our flight vector application and a call intake request for the scene has already been generated. Questions on the map?
No, pretty straightforward. And so the third party, if you guys could send me a list of kind of your current vendors or your partners in the positioning, GPS tracking, essentially, that would be good. I'm familiar with a few of them, but definitely will look at other ones if you guys have others that you work with. So
sure. And just to show you that these are our settings right here that you're seeing. So we've got Blue Sky, Blue Tree, Fox Tracks, Next Track, a specific ground. We won't even get into that. Latitude Technologies, Outerlink, SkyConnect, SkyTrack, SpiderTrax, Track Plus, Verizon for their ground. So we've got a pretty good list of places that we already have APIs built with.
Oh, good. Okay, great.
Yeah, and then configuring these is again, it's pretty easy. With SpiderTrax, we just open up SpiderTrax. We get the URL that they're looking for, and then we also just get your user ID and password, and then SpiderTrax status would show up down here in the lower right-hand corner.
Perfect.
So that is, so those are how our tracking providers work. That is our map. Now, during this time, again, your communicators can potentially be receiving notifications. So this one right here, the crew has exceeded the 5 minutes allowed by liftoff. These alerts are all configurable. Down the road, when you start talking more about your asset tracking, if the asset stops tracking or you lose satellite connectivity, the CAD can alert you to that so that your communicators are aware, and dealing with emergencies as well. Some of the tracking providers have emergency buttons on their associated products, and those activations and alerts can also come through into our CAD. SkyConnect is one that we get. There's an emergency button in some of the aircraft. They push it and it activates through SkyConnect, and we get a notification in our system as well.
That's nice.
So another thing, and again, depending on the audience, is if your communicators are going to be coordinating other patients, are they going to be keeping track of information on patients that you guys are not flying, or are they strictly just going to be working on the air component?
Yeah, so unique setup. So right now, the center that we're going to be utilizing for dispatch, we're actually hiring some folks for it. It's going to be an actual hospital one call type scenario. The ground EMS locally is separate and it's dispatched through a different entity. But eventually there may be some migration opportunities in the future. But for right now, it's going to be a set of clinical folks that are taking intake calls for transfers into and out of the facility. Okay.
So if they were working on patients that were not going to fly, but you still wanted to keep track of those patients in the system, you can add new patients without creating trips. And that can be done just from our transfer center module where you're adding them. And again, you could have different timestamps and tabs for those. I've got several customers that not only are they the air flight coordinators, they are also the transfer center. And so they're using our module for some of that. And we're working on integrations with several of the electronic patient records, Epic being a big one that we've got a lot of customers interested in integrating with, so that Flight Vector can share information and data between that system. So
yeah, what's the status on Epic?
We are working on it. I don't have a like as far as when you think it would be live, I don't have a date yet. I would refer that off to our project management team.
And I think she had that. I think it's on. At least it's starting this year. I just can't remember if it's finishing this year.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good. They're huge. Like 64% of the hospital market, last statistic I saw. So.
And we're also working on an HL7 integration, so that would kind of try and capture a lot of the others.
Good. Yeah, that's great. Scott, maybe this is more of a question for you. So let's say it's something that we want to take a look at doing is tracking all the non-air transport patients coming into or going to different facilities. Are those going to be chargeable events in regards to the volume, or is that something that we could use for data purposes?
Just charging or just having the just tracking patients and not transports.
Yeah, correct. So like, let's say we're doing the transports for the air stuff, but this one call center, they get the call for a patient to come to their facility. If they do enter that data, just so they can kind of have it for their records, is that going to be a chargeable event, or is that just going to be?
We're actually that's on our list of things to determine what we're going to be doing with that, because I know that option is going to be available to us with some of the things that we're doing. So I don't have an answer for you just yet, but we will have an answer.
Okay, we'll be interested in an answer for that one. So
okay.
Good. Okay, and then go ahead. Did you have another question?
A couple actually, and
okay.
You know what? I'll just let you finish, and we'll circle back to it. Mine can wait till the end. So
okay, no problem. We're just about there. So the other thing that I want to show you is pre-scheduled trips. So we can create calls as well that are pre-scheduled, and the pre-scheduled then gives us the option to add scheduled dates and times. So if we had a trip that we knew was going to be on the 25th, and it was going to be from I don't know, pick whatever hospital we want here. Let's say coming from this hospital to this hospital. So we can set this to where the scheduled time is going to be on the 25th at 1600 hours, and that scheduled time is the time that we want to be there. We can now tell the CAD, okay, build it, and it creates the call over here in this pre-scheduled area. And so again, then when we just set this for 5 minutes, that's obviously not realistic to be there. But you can change this reminder time. So say 2 hours before the call we're supposed to be there, the communicator will get an alert. We can pre-assign an asset as well to that call. So now we know which asset is going to go. And again, this just will sit here until a couple hours before, and then it will move over into our active requests. So that's kind of the scheduling component for fixed wing. I know there are a fair amount of scheduled transports that happen with fixed wing, and this is a really nice way to keep track of those. And then you can also see when we created this call, it shows us a calendar, and it shows us this request saying that that's been assigned to this asset. If you had multiple that were scheduled in this point in time, you'd be able to see that. And then you can zoom in or out to see all your scheduled requests on a given day. And again, you can change this around. You can see the requests that we're working on right now. So again, the calendaring and scheduling feature is very, very nice.
Yeah, that is great.
We also, as I mentioned, the ability to page multiple different groups. We can store pager groups or personnel within our paging section. So you can send an email to an email address if you want. If you wanted to send a page to a pager group, you just tell the CAD simply which pager group it is that you want to send it to, enter the information, and press send. It's really very, very easy to use. Keeping track of crew. This is our crew management module. We have all kinds of different crew members, what their roles are, what it is that they can do. You can even go so far down if you want to keep track of their weight so that you can get that information over to the pilots for weight and balance of the aircraft. Hospitals, as far as managing hospitals, so you come into our hospital module, and Yakima Valley Memorial is this one that we're using. This is how we manage hospitals, and you have to configure the CAD to tell it which airports or landing zones or helipads that you use. So I've gone in and done that for this one. You can store multiple phone numbers for that facility if you want to by adding them here so they're available immediately for your communicators. You can have any notes or information that you want associated to that, and those notes and information, they show up when you're looking at this. Those notes and information, if we click on this box, it pulls this up. It's just not editable. So people can't come in here and delete this stuff. It'll say that it's deleted, but when we go like that and we come back, it's not going to delete. This is kind of a view only. And permissions can be completely restricted so that people can see what you want them to see, change what you want them to change, or not see what you don't want them to see. We have a very robust security and management module that allows you to configure those permission groups.
Yep. Okay, perfect. So then
we also have
your.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, you're good. Yeah, keep going. You're good.
Oh, I was just going to show you. So as far as our user groups, you can have multiple. I've got 8 or 9 here configured. So administrators, obviously, we would give full administrative access to. But then if you had people from billing that you wanted to come in and just see the information, you can come into it as a read only. If you have people from administration that you want to give access to but not be able to go in and accidentally make changes to a flight, you can create all kinds of different groups. And you can see that when we come over here and we look at, let's just say we look at a comm spec, when they've got permission to edit, then you can even lock other features down. And we've got all of these features that give you the ability to really lock things down how you want it done. Again, access what you want them to have access to and not have access to what you don't want them to. So we also have the ability to upload documents. These documents might be like a PAIP plan. So if readily accessible documents, you click on this, you open them up, and it'll open it up on your screen. We have the ability to store caution, alerts, and warnings within a hospital. So for this particular one, I've got a caution for Harborview Medical Center that there's a large crane 350 feet west. If we were flying to that waypoint, a pop-up would happen that would tell the user, hey, there's a large crane 350 feet west of this location. So again, you can build this out with safety being a very, very key component, improving their situational awareness based on all of the data being in this one location. This one I didn't really talk about. It's our transfer center. This opens up our transfer center module. It works very similar to how this section over here I have that's called patients works. Escorts, this is where we would track our ride-alongs. So if we had a family member accompanying the patient, you could enter that information. If we had if the patient was guarded, you could enter the law enforcement or corrections officer information. Or if you were flying a really specialized patient that had somebody coming along providing care from the sending facility, you would also be able to keep track of them in this section. And again, document, if we add a new escort, you document what it is that they're doing, what role they have. So again, completely customizable by you, the customer. Alerts and notifications, we can configure any number of things to come in here. This can also bring in weather turndown information if you're using weatherturndown.com. Paging information, if people are sending the CAD a page, that information can be displayed in an alerts window as well. So again, this doesn't have to be here below assets. You can have alerts over here. You could have alerts anywhere that you wanted to within your screen. It's just all based on how you would like to configure your system. All right, so what kind of questions can we answer?
Oh, this is a very nice system. Nothing too major. We'll circle back to, I saw a risk value box that looked like it was an auto calculation box. Yes. Do you have a separate area where that links to, and how does that work?
So as far as a risk assessment and evaluation, I'm going to let Steve cover a lot of that because yes, it communicates our system. I'm not a flight and duty tracker pro by any means, but you are able to capture the risk score and we do log that within the system. If you wanted it to be sent somewhere, that would be something that, again, not sure how that communicates with flight and duty tracker.
I can answer that now if you want, James. This is
Perfect,
Steve, by the way.
Welcome.
Sorry, guys, I just joined. it's been a day of meetings. So for risk assessment, pilots would fill out the risk assessment on Flight Duty Tracker, and they would sign and submit the risk. When they do that, it will come here to the CAD with an alert to the OCC or whoever you've designated that is a flight releaser, if you have such a person. Not everybody does, but the risk would appear on the CAD, and there is the capability within the CAD to then release the flight. So then the pilot knows back in the Flight Duty Tracker world that the flight has been released by somebody with operational control, for instance.
Yeah, the new rotor standards, the tier stuff. Okay, makes sense. Okay.
Did that answer your question?
It did. Is it customizable for them, or how does that? I'm sure you'll show me that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll show you the FRAT when we get into Flight Duty Tracker. It is customized. The only thing is we'll take what you have today if you already have something, and we'll help you mold it into the paradigm that we use in Flight Duty Tracker, which is really a two-step process where there's one part that is called static risk, things that wouldn't change necessarily very frequently throughout a pilot shift. And then on a per flight basis, there's a dynamic risk. So, and those fields are completely customizable. So we'll take what you have and adapt it to our system.
Yeah, good. And I'm excited to see that. Circling back then, the other thing I've had some experience with in the past, how about your run numbers? Are we able as the customer to set how we want run numbers to read out, how they randomize, things of that nature? How does that work?
Well, so we have mission, or it's called mission number formatting, and that is here in the administrator UI. You've got these options right here, which we have available. Now, if you wanted something specific for your program, it would be something that we would need to get over to our development team to have them work that in if this didn't meet your needs.
Okay, yeah, I'm sure that will be just fine.
And then patient numbering is similar because each run has a number and then each patient also has a subsequent number.
Sure.
So you're able to track them independently.
Sure, sounds good. And same type of format. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
How about exporting to third-party billing systems, charting systems? For example, looks like we're going to be utilizing the EMS charting system ESO. Do you guys have any export capability with that system?
ESO Solutions.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
currently don't, and I have reached out to them a couple times, and they won't respond. So if you have a account manager or somebody there that would actually reach out to us, that would be great.
Yeah, I can definitely probably get something set up there.
Okay, and I'm guessing that they know NEMSIS like most every other patient charting system knows. So I would think it wouldn't be a big deal, but yeah, we just need to talk to them.
Sure.
And we've only had one other potential customer ask us about ESO, so that's why it hasn't been a high priority for us. But we're more than willing to make it more of a priority if we can talk to somebody.
Oh, for sure. Not a typical one for air. We're just kind of utilizing customer preference because they're the deal that they work with the ground ambulance utilizes ESO because they've got to export into their Epic system already. So, okay.
Yeah.
And
then
go ahead.
So you asked about exporting to charting. Was there a second part to that?
No, that was it. The NEMSIS coding to the states, all that stuff. It will. I mean, if it's not being auto-populated in their chart, they'll have to manually type it, and we'll go to NEMSIS anyways as part of the XMLS dump. So, okay. No, the last question I had on this side, reporting. So running
Yeah.
your QA, timing, track and trending specific crews, pilots, etc.
Yep. So with just the example that you gave, I can create a customized report, and we'll go split from multi-patient. And so what we can do is within our reporting is designed to get you the information out of the CAD. Our reporting is not designed to make fancy graphs or charts or anything like that, because so many customers use so many different options for that. So what we have elected to do is be able to create data in an exportable CSV format that you can take into your reporting tool of choice. So with that example that you gave about crew members, about times, we can create, we have a number of fields here within our custom reporting that we can report on. So if we wanted to know requesting agency, let's just say we wanted to know receiving agency, we can create all of these custom, all of these reports. Let's see here. Receiving agency, we want to know the patient. Let's say we wanted to know the patient mileage, our loaded miles. Let's go with our patient miles. And we wanted to know our crew members.
How about pilot time of first call to weather accept?
Okay, certainly. So what we would do in that is we can create a customized report. I'll just use this field, and it's called a time difference. And so what the time difference is, we want to look at what time the pilot, let's just say, I don't know if I'm not probably capturing those metrics, but let's just say from the time that the call was created to the time that the call that we first departed for the requester. So then we would just go first departure, and automatically, and then we could just change this, created to departure, and the system will automatically run that metric and calculate that for us. So what we would do in capturing what you're looking for, time pilot notified to time of acceptance, we would just simply create a couple of different timestamps for that when we were setting up your system, if that were a metric you wanted to capture, and then we'd be able to build it right here in reporting.
And then save it as a customizable, and just we could just set the date parameters and keep running that then. Yeah.
So let's just call this. So we'll just call this the demo report, and we'll go OK. And now when we go to run our report, we can now just come down to our customized demo report right here, January 21st. That's the one we just built. If we want to look at all of our data for this current year, and then we can run it, it'll do right now. It'll do this is your basic PDF that it will run. If you want to export it into Excel or a comma separated value workbook, you would just do that here. We also have the ability to automate reports. So if you had a daily report that you wanted to go out every day, we can create automation for that, so the CAD automatically sends it at a specific time to a specific group or group of people or person or whatever. I mean, again, any number of different things that we can do here with reporting.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, the data, the raw data is perfect because, like you said, you can build whatever you want out of it.
Yeah.
How about the data itself? Who hosts it? Do you guys? Who maintains it?
Well, good question. Most of our customers, they have their own SQL server that they're using to house the data. That's kind of what, like I said, what most customers do. But we do have some hosting options that we could do if that were something that interested you. But you own your data. And that's something that I think is really important, because I know some of the systems that are out there, you do not own your data. And it's all fine and good until your relationship with that vendor starts to get maybe a little bit rocky and you try and get some of your data from them. There's a company out there right now that does not really like to give you data if they think that you're going to leave them. So back to our system, you own the data in your own SQL database.
Nice, perfect. Okay, great. No, I mean, really, outside of that, I really appreciate the demo. You definitely hit on everything that I was looking for. So
good. And so if you have any other questions about the CAD product, of course, let us know. If you don't have any other questions right now, I'm going to actually drop off because I've got to prep for a training that I'm doing here in about half hour. So if there's nothing else for me, I'm happy to turn you over to Steve.
Yeah, no, thanks, James. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. It was nice to meet you guys. And again, if there's anything else that I can do or any other questions on the CAD, please just don't hesitate to let us know.
Absolutely.
All right. Scott, anything else?
Nothing for me.
Marvelous. Okay, I'm going to go ahead
Thanks,
and
James.
drop off then. You're welcome. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, James.
You're welcome, Steve.
So he has left, but are you making yourself the presenter, Steve, or do I need to?
I can do it, I think.
Oh, I did. I'm
Nope.
I'm a little faster than you, or at least I just did it. So.
Okay, thanks. All right. Hello, everybody. Sorry, I'm late. I missed the intro, so if you wouldn't terribly mind just telling me who I'm talking to.
Yeah, no. So Kyle actually had to jump off, but we got the recording going, so that's great. If we can just figure out a way to get him the link later so you can watch this, that would be great.
Okay.
But my name's Jay Keller. I'm actually the president of an air medical company that we just partnered with a hospital to start April. So we'll be spinning up with them single fixed wing operation for now, but our company is going to be looking to expand probably pretty aggressively here over the next couple of years. So we're looking for a system that's going to grow with us.
Excellent. Well, all right. So I'm Steve Adams. I'm the project manager for our Flight and Duty Tracker product, which hopefully you see on your screen now.
I got it. It looks beautiful. I like the picture.
All right. It's a little antiquated helicopter, but you get the idea. So basically what I'm going to cover is the software, which is all web-based, that your flight ops will mainly be using, either your director of ops or your chief pilot or yourself, whomever you designate to be using this particular side of the house. So like I said, it's web-based. If you have any questions as I go through, feel free to interrupt away and I'll do my best to answer your question. To get started, the whole premise here is to give access to the pilots to their records that pertain to them, but mainly it's there for you to manage your flight ops department for Part 135 regulatory purposes, right? So you'll come to this website, which is app.flightdutytracker.com. Everybody has their own login, obviously. I'm going to log in as an administrator in the system, just so you can see what the full access looks like. And as I go through the demo, I'll explain to you what a general user would also see, right? Just some of the highlight the differences. So as I log in, the first thing that's going to happen is the system will drop us into what we call the reminders window. So on the reminders window, it's going to force the pilots to look at certain aspects of their record, if you will. So in this case, the very first thing is, even though this person's an administrator, she does also have her own personal flight requirements, right? So there are the different training deadlines that are coming due for this person. And we're tracking everything from medicals to everything. Whatever has an expiration date as far as your 135 training manual goes, you can put that into Flight Duty Tracker and we can track that for them. So it's more than just what the name implies, which is flight and duty times. We're tracking everything else as well. So we're forcing them to acknowledge the fact that they're in their training window. Maybe some things have expired. This is a demo site, so some things are a little bit aged, but you get the idea. So we have a pre-month, a base month, and a grace month, and then if it's expired, it's a vastly different purple color. We're also looking at their currency status. So if they're getting close to anything, we're going to pop a warning here on the reminders window that, hey, you're within 10% of, say, night landing currency or instrument currency. Again, whatever you set up in the system, that's what we're going to be tracking and also warning them on. This company that I'm showing you, the demo site, is a mix of helicopters and fixed wing. So you'll see a flavor of both. Other things, since I'm an administrator logging in here, you're going to see expirations for the whole company. So pilots will see this area basically, and some other things that aren't on the screen right now. And administrators are going to see everybody's expirations that are coming due. So the list could be long, right? It really depends on how we customize the system for you. And then if we keep going down this list here, we also have a smart messaging system. So not only is Flight Duty Tracker just spitting out information to you, but there's almost, you could consider it to be a bot in a way, in that it's watching everybody and what they're doing on the system as far as currency, without sounding spooky and weird about it. But basically, as you can see here, I'm highlighting one particular pilot that the system noted, hey, this guy, he was on duty for more than 14 hours on such and such date. And the list, this is probably not a realistically long list, right? It's probably be much shorter in your operation, in your normal operation. But being a demo server, things are going to age out pretty rapidly. But it's monitoring everything. So we're trying to be proactive rather than just simply reactive, like the paper universe would be. Other things that you could see on the reminders window would be if there's a document that you've uploaded to the system and you've tagged it as being required for reading, you'll get a warning, or the pilot will get a warning here as well. And then they're required to click on it. So we can make them click the link and look at the document. I can't actually make them read it. You'll also get you as the administrator can run a report to see how many times a pilot has looked at that memo or whatever the case may be. Once they've satisfied all these things, then they can go to the home screen. So let me just give you a brief overview of what you're looking at here on the screen now. So the top two bars we call the status bar. There's a help system built in that it's smart. So whatever page you're on within Flight Duty Tracker, when you click on the help button, it'll show you the help for that entire page. Log out, change password, and about, all that's just typical stuff. The green dot in the corner is network connectivity. So when it's green, that means you're connected to the internet. So if you notice, we don't have a dedicated app for Flight Duty Tracker. The website was built to be an app. So web browsers now, modern ones, are very smart, and they allow us to save data even when you're not online. So that dot would be red if you didn't have a network connection at the moment. And then if they're entering flights or weight and balance or risk assessment into the system, it's being saved on whatever device you're using. I'm presuming you'll be using iPads, or you have been using iPads in the aircraft. Is that
correct?
Okay. So all of that would be saved right there on the iPad. So the next time they're connected to the internet again, the system will automatically refresh the database so that everything is in sync. Again, here's another required reading, new messages area, which we'll talk about in a second. As an administrator, I can change whichever pilot I need to work on. So if I need to edit a flight or something, I would switch to that pilot, and I can make that edit. Obviously, as a non-administrator, they wouldn't be able to do that. And even though I say there's an administrator and non-administrator, really there's all types of flavors in between. So you can have a full admin person that can do everything on the system, and then you can have people that have a little bit more power, but not as much as a full access. So there's lots of different varieties that we can do. The green, yellow, and red button here, that's the risk assessment. So we kind of briefly talked about that a moment ago. So if you click on it, you get the static risk where a pilot can select whatever fields you want. And if in this case, this is a very generic, just to show you in the demo site. Clicking on the different bubbles will increase the number down below based on the criteria that's been set up. And based on that, if you tell us what the limits are, so this button will turn yellow or red based on whatever your setup is. Okay, that's static risk. Other things, we have a currency window here. So again, we're monitoring 135, 267. I'm guessing, is that what you guys operate under, is 267? Single pilot?
Single pilot, yeah, correct.
Okay. So all of that is in here. So we're monitoring their 13, 24 hours off per quarter. When they get close to a limit, we're going to turn this stuff different colors. The box will turn pink if they're 10% away from a limit. Not normally the case with most operators in the medical field. Our utility companies get close to it all the time. So each one of these will change based on how close they're coming to it. The flight time summary table is just informational purposes. It's just there for the pilots. Everybody wants to know how many hours they've flown, so we flash it up there for them on the home screen. Down below, we have the training window, which these are all the same things that you saw on the reminders window. We're just showing it to you once again. Line pilots will not see this. They'll only see their training. They won't see everybody's, obviously. MVG landings, that doesn't apply to you guys, but night currency would. So you would also see everybody's currency status here as well. The date, right now it shows everybody on current, but there would be a date in here of when they would expire if nothing should change. So you get an idea if somebody's getting close, but you can also run reports to do the same thing. The daily status table here is just a way to set what they're doing for that particular day. If a pilot is scheduled off, say today, they don't have to log into Flight Duty Tracker and click off, where the system is smart enough that no entry for today means they're off. So that goes towards their currency requirements. And then the fields here in this drop down are all set by you. So whatever you want to call them, we have some operators call it day shift, night shift, training, whatever. We'll set it up for whatever you want it to look like, basically. And then duty time is pretty obvious as well. So this is where they're going to set their start and end duty time. They can either click the button to do a now, or they can manually type in, I started my duty day at 7. And if you notice, the system is being proactive and it's telling them a little warning, not a warning, more like a reminder, hey, if nothing changes, you got to be off 14 hours later, which is at 2100 my time. That's that. If they exceed this duty time, for instance, they go over that 14 hours, it's very obvious that they've done it. It tells them, hey, you've exceeded it by an hour, you're over your 14 hours. Do you want to confirm this? So we can just let them click the button to confirm it. This wasn't a typo, or we can make something else, an action happen when they click that button, like maybe they have to fill out a form that says why they exceeded their duty time, because we know the regulations allow for that, but maybe they need to report that to you so that you can alter their shift for tomorrow, for instance.
So you would be able to allow us to build that form in right there? Mm-hmm.
Exactly. You would tell us what you want to the form to look like, and then we build it for you. In our system, you don't have to do anything. We do it all for you, right? We want to take that headache away from you. So we'll work through a step system to set up the system initially. There's a 4-step process. And then from there, we will help manage it for you as well. So again, with this box and trying to be proactive, we're also looking at yesterday's duty time out. So if they duty timed out and it conflicts with what they're typing in here now, that same red box will appear and it says, hey, you haven't had your 10 hours or more, depending on what happened yesterday, rest off. So then again, they'll have to confirm that change, and we won't let them log in. And we have other options here as well. I mean, we can be very restrictive. Some of our DoD contracts or companies that have DoD contracts make this a hard thing where they can only click the button and nothing more. They can't do a manual entry of their duty time because, people could fake it. Not that that's ever happened, but it could happen. So we can be restrictive like that if that's something that you want. Down the left-hand side of the screen, that's called our sidebar menu. This is how you'll navigate throughout Flight Duty Tracker. And we'll just briefly touch on each one of these. We can get more in depth in an area if you want to see more, then I'll definitely show you more. The next logical place would be flight entry. So here's one major benefit of signing with Flight Vector, right? So if you take the Flight Vector CAD and you have Flight Duty Tracker, the two systems talk to each other, obviously, right? I mean, it would only make sense that we have these products that are intertwined. They can act independently. That isn't an issue. But if you do have the connection with the CAD, when that dispatcher creates the flight, all that stuff that James showed you before, when they create that flight plan, it flows automatically down to Flight Duty Tracker to that particular pilot. And what that does is it reduces the workload of the pilot, so they don't have to go here, click create, and put in their point A to point B. All of this would be filled in for them. So the routing, the aircraft, we already know what aircraft they're assigned, that sort of thing. The flight number, or whatever you might call it, right? Again, this is a label that you'll tell us what you want it called. Some company calls it flight numbers, others it's mission numbers, run numbers, whatever you want to call it. That information comes down from the CAD and pre-fills in here into Flight Duty Tracker. Same thing with crew names. So if you want to track your currency for your medics or your medical staff, you can do that in Flight Duty Tracker as well. So like for helicopter people, their medics are trained on goggle flying, and they have currency requirements for that as well. So here we can track that stuff for them as well. So on flight entry, you can either get it automatic or you can create it manually. Even if you are connected to the CAD, a pilot can still create a flight plan by themselves. And then all the blocks that you see highlighted in blue now, they're all customized for you. So being a demo server, we try to throw in a variety of boxes just to give you a feel for what's possible. And maybe it looks very overwhelming. Yours probably will not be nearly as complicated looking as this is. But just to give you an idea of what you're looking at, you can have many different things here within the system. Now, as the pilot progresses through their flight, every time they take off and every time they land and they're reporting that back to the dispatchers using the CAD, those takeoff and landing times or block in and block out times will automatically be populated in here for the pilots as well. So really, in essence, all the pilot has to do is whip out the iPad, and if you want to use our weight and balance tool, you can. That's built in as well. Or if you have some other system, you obviously can continue to use that and do their risk assessment. So basically, that's all they need to do to get started when they have that connection. Otherwise, they go about their business if they're creating it manually. Okay. At the end of the flight, and you can have many different legs, of course, at the end of the flight, you have a flight summary where they can then fill in the appropriate blocks for that tracking of flight time and duty time, which is required by the regs as well. So that's kind of flight entry. Very quickly, we spend a lot of time when we set this part of the system up. We've spent a lot of time with our customers to make sure we get this right, because this is a major point of entry for your pilots. They'll spend the majority of their time here. Do you have any questions on this particular area?
No, none so far. I know when Kyle takes a look at this video later, he may shoot you an email with a few more.
Okay, and Kyle is he your chief pilot or DO or?
Yeah, yep. So he's going to be our chief pilot, our DO, kind of because of the small op. He's able to do both roles, and he's also one of the. I know, right? He's also one of the administrators over the program. So
excellent. So one other thing I wanted to kind of reiterate is that the system adapts to whatever device you're on. Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate what Flight Duty Tracker looks like if you're on an iPad. And you notice all the blocks are formatting all by themselves. So this is what an iPad and even an iPhone or any smartphone rather, would look like this. So everything is adapted so that it flows nicely. So when the pilots are using whatever device they want to use, they can get to their information very quickly and easily. And then of course it snaps back when you're on a regular computer. All right. We do have a pilot scheduling system built in. It's basic today. We have in our roadmap to expand the capabilities of the schedule software, or the system rather. Today, what you can do is assign a pilot to a base and a shift. Basically, it's a shift scheduler. If you have multiple days, obviously pilots are probably working some number of days in a row. You can drag and drop. If there's a particular shift that you want to highlight because it's something important, bring a lunch or whatever, something. That way, when the pilot is looking at the schedule, they can say, oh, okay, there's something special on the 24th. I better look at whatever that is. So that's one way. This schedule does interface with the home screen. So for the duty times, so if you try to put in more than a 14-hour shift, it'll flag, give you the same warnings that you saw on the home screen. If you're building out the schedule for tomorrow and you try to give somebody less than 10 hours of rest, again, it'll flag it and let you know. We're trying to take the hard part of managing flight ops out of the window. Next up, go ahead.
Did you say that does that communicate back to the CAD system? So if Carrie Adams was on the schedule for today from 07 to 12, would that autofill in that specific aircraft?
So it won't autofill to the CAD. We have a check-in system that we would use that for. So a pilot, when they come on shift, they would use the check-in button. And what that does is that automatically communicates to the CAD. And it tells the CAD, hey, I know right now today you have one aircraft, but I'm sure that's not going to be forever. So they can check in by saying, hey, I'm in this aircraft today and my crew members are, Sarah and John. And that will automatically populate into the CAD. So there's no communication, right? So a lot of operators have this call-in thing where all the pilots at 8 a.m. call into the dispatch center and say, okay, this is Steve, I'm in aircraft 911, and my crew is this. And just imagine the nightmare that must be for the comm center to take, multiple bases, everybody checking in. So this is an automation for that. It's not tied into the schedule, although we can add a button here that says set from schedule, but that doesn't link to the CAD. Only the check-in button does.
Okay, fair enough. So thank you.
Yep. Next is reports, right? So James kind of towards the end of his demo was showing you the reporting stuff. And we have basically the same mentality for reports here. First, we've built a ton of system reports for you already. All kinds of things that are basic to flight ops, right? Logbooks, timesheets, data collection. That's what Flight Duty Tracker really is. It's a big data collector for you as the manager of the flight ops, right? Because you need to know how much time your people are flying, what their duty hours are. And then on the other side of that coin is revenue, right? So how many gallons did we burn and how many patients did we float? All those type of things can be done here in Flight Duty Tracker as well as the CAD. And the two numbers, assuming that you take both products, the two numbers will be the same essentially, right? In many different aspects. But you can run the reports on either end. So we're more than just flight time and duty time, obviously. Like I said, I've only showed you kind of that kind of stuff so far, but there's a whole lot more here. So one report that you could run is the annual resume report, right? You probably have something similar to this form in your current pilot training books, right? Every pilot has to have some sort of annual resume where we show how many hours they've flown and who the heck they are and where they live and that sort of stuff. So we have that already built for you. We can do some modifications, obviously, based on what you need for your GOM or training manual. So that's one report, and it's live. So every time you run the report, if they're out there flying, the numbers will change as you run the report. That's one. Another one is flight and duty chart report. This is a real popular one with POIs for some reason. I think you'll probably understand when you see it. It's very graphic in nature, right? It's graphical, I should say. And they like a picture, right? It's easy for a POI to walk in and say, okay, I want to look at your records. Show me Megan here and what she's done this month. So the light gray bars are duty periods and the dark gray bars are when Megan flew during that duty period. So it makes it very easy to see what's been going on. And we're counting the 24-hour periods. You can count them manually here or by other reports to show that 13 24-hour off requirement. That's that sort of thing. That's one report. Another one, so again, flight time, duty time, okay, but how about training, right? So all the training things that you do for 135 ops can be in here as well. But again, you need to have an easy way to pull that information out. We use a term that we've coined ourselves called master training. So we'll run a master training tracking report, and it's broken down by core, which would be training things that are not necessarily directly related to an aircraft. So that would be like hazmat training or TB tests, if you want to do that even, medicals, that sort of thing would be core training. And then all the other aircraft related 293A and B 299s, 297s, all that stuff would be under each individual aircraft type that you might have. So when you run that master training tracking report, it looks like this. So again, it's kind of graphical. The whole idea is kind of be a glance and go type of thing. So we're using the 3-month window just like you're used to now with Part 135, pre-month base and grace. And we color code things so that you can see what's going on. And all these columns that you see here are all customized for you. So you will tell us what you want to track in your system, and we set that up for you. You keep it current, and we make all the fields for you to keep it easy. So to pre-plan for training, so that's great. That tells you what's going on right now, master training for this particular month, January. But if I want to plan for training next month, I can do that with the upcoming training report right here. So I would pick February for next month, and I can do it by bases. All kinds of different filters are possible. And when I generate it, I'll get a report like this. Now, this is a live customer, just because I wanted to show you the real deal rather than our made-up demo site. So here now you can see this company for February, each one of these items here that are due for a particular pilot. That way your DO, your chief pilot, your training department, as you expand, this will make a whole lot more sense to you. It probably will be easy in the beginning because you only have a few pilots. But when you hit that magic number around 10, it really becomes a pain in the butt, I think, to keep track of this. But now you can pre-plan and see who's going to enter their pre-month or their base month, that sort of thing in the future. So every place that you can type into Flight Duty Tracker just about is a thing that you can use to make a report off of, right? So like I said, we've created a bunch for you already, and they're all adapted to how we set the system up for you. So it's not too difficult to make changes here. But if there's a report that you need that we haven't already built, then you can use our report designer to do that. So it's very simple, drag and drop concept. So you select some attributes at the top here, and based on what you select, the items in the unused column become available or not. So like if I need an aircraft report, it'll be aircraft related things. If I need a pilot report, it'll show me pilot type of thing. So if I need to build a duty time report, for instance, I can just drag and drop time in and time out. I have a date, name, each one of these are a column, and I hit save, and now I have a duty time report. It works, I would say 95% of the time, it'll make the report that you need. But if there's some specialized report that the report designer is just not cutting it for, sketch it up for us, send an email off, and we'll build that report for you into Flight Duty Tracker. Not a problem. So it's part of your subscription. So there's no extra cost for that type of thing. All right, and then you can select who sees the report as well. Lots of different options here. Next here, I'm going to skip the little messages. This is like a basic email system where you can send a message to a pilot like, hey, don't forget to wash the aircraft tomorrow, or whatever. It's very simple. But what's more important is this one called file reports. So do you have an SMS, or do you plan on building one?
We would actually, yeah, we would either build or be in the market for one.
Okay, so when you get to the point of deploying an SMS, obviously SMS is all about trending and report generation for safety, that type of thing. So we have this system built into Flight Duty Tracker called File Reports, and it's not just limited to safety, although the two that I have here now are safety sort of related. One is incident report. So if something goes bad in a flight, you know, you're supposed to go from point A to point B, but you had to divert due to a mechanical. Well, we know in Part 135 that you have to report that because it's a flight interruption. So you would fill out this incident report and check the boxes that apply. And based on the boxes that you check, you as the administrator, the system will help you build what's called a 135.415 or 417 report. That's a flight interruption, or what's the other term? I can never think of it. anyway, those two FAA reports, which there isn't actually a form to fill out if you have a flight interruption or a mechanical interruption, but we made up one that captures the information that's required, that's in the regulations. So then you can ship that off to your POI in a PDF format and meet that 10-day requirement, right? Once the pilot clicks file, so they fill out this, all the information, they write up a little write-up, and then they click file. We'll send an email to you or whomever you've elected to get the email with the report attached to it, so that you know what's going on when you're at home and your pilots are out flying at 3 in the morning, right? So then they're locked out of it. They can't make any changes to this report until you unlock it for them if you need to. Otherwise, you can do your basic due diligence and review what's going on, and then close the loop, which is all part of that SMS. So you can have investigation date, mitigation date, and all that sort of thing in there. The other report here is a hazard report. So think of that, and again, we can adapt. If you already have these forms, we can adapt our system to what you have to make it available in an electronic format. The hazard report. Go ahead.
Sorry, with the closing out the incident that you were just showing, that's manual entry, and it would just be unlock, modify. There's not like a tiered sending it around to different people. Can you get all that in there? Okay.
No, it's not tiered. It's just it's you either unlock it for a pilot to edit or not. But within our admins roles, you decide who can see those type of reports, right? So like a line pilot, they can file the report and they can see all the reports that they have personally filed, but they can't see the rest of the company. So that's definitely for privacy purposes. You definitely don't want your pilots to see all the incidences.
But the administrator, though, could go in there manually and just update that the incident's been closed out to show that there was loop closure. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. And then hazards here, this is, again, for safety management systems, hazard reporting. Everybody has their own format for a hazmat or a hazard report. This is just a generic one that we made up for the demo site, but you kind of get the gist of it. They can fill out the information that's appropriate and hit file. And it can do the same things that the incident report does, where it locks the pilot out, that sort of thing as well. And they can file it anonymously as well, which is an important aspect of an SMS, to be able to file anonymous. We can also add other things to this file report, right? So if you have any other type of reports that your pilots would fill out, vacation request forms, for example, we can build that in here as well, just to make it easier, kind of put everything under one umbrella type of deal, right? To make it a little bit easier for you.
How about expanding on that? This is probably a smaller operator question that I would imagine you may get or may not get. But obviously the duty tracking is for the aviation staff, but the reporting system, and now, is that something that you guys have granted access to smaller operators for all of their staff in the past, or is it like
absolutely.
Or
absolutely. So, and I'll get to that as well, but I'll give you a preview of it now. So even though Flight Duty Tracker is really heavy on flight ops, you can have other types of users, which we call crew. So they may not be crew on the aircraft. It could be a mechanic. That could be your ground staff. And then we have 3 flavors of users. Let me skip to that, in fact, since we're talking about it. So your 3 flavors of users to the system will be pilots, admin staff, and crew. So crew and pilots, we can track training events for, not a problem. Pilots are the premier portion of the system, right? Crew we charge a nominal fee for crew. It's like $3 per person per month to use the crew tracking portion of it. And then admin staff is free. So you can have as many admin staff as you need. Those are people that help you do record keeping, that sort of thing. We're not tracking anything to do with admin staff. We're just granting them access so they can help you do your job, right? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. That's great.
Okay. So next, we'll flash back to the library. So the library is like your electronic reading file. So here you can upload all types of different documents that are related to your operation. Most operators upload their GOM, their their ops specs and their MEL, that sort of thing. Those are standard that we see. Then we have other operators that will upload all their training PowerPoint presentations for new hire staff and all kinds of documents. Really, it's limited only by your imagination, right? So upload at will. We don't care what type of file it is or how big it is. So you can upload as you see fit. If you notice, though, with our list of files here, and although they're kind of gibberish, we don't use folders. We're using tags to distinguish files, right? So folders, you would make a training folder and you would make an aircraft folder. Here, you would just use tags. So if you're looking for something, you could look at the list of tags and say, okay, show me everything related to FAA. And it instantly filters this down to show you anything tagged with FAA. And you can do multiple tags as well. So maybe it's MEL, but it's also tagged as FAA. And you can really refine your search down to what you're looking for. And you see our system is very quick about filtering. And if you don't know the tag that you're after, but you kind of know what you're after, you can just start typing and it'll do the same thing. And that's the file, the library system. This is also the place where you would upload like an important memo that you want everybody to read. Hey, this is an important memo and I want to require it for reading. So when they log in, they'll be forced to click on the link to read the document that you uploaded before they can actually start using Flight Duty Tracker. And of course, we're recording how many times they click that link. All right.
Right,
Next.
so there would be a way to pull that, like an Excel spreadsheet that says every staff member read this, and they'd be timestamped and dated.
Yep, and we'll tell you how many times they've clicked it as well. So maybe after they logged in, they looked at it one time, and then they're like, oh, let me reread that thing, and they come back to the library and they click it again. We'll count that as well. So you'll know the first time they clicked on it and how many times they've clicked on it after that, and the last time as well. So you can keep a good, accurate. And that's you brought up a good question is, what about Excel? So I forgot to mention here in the reports, many of the reports that we have here, you can export that either in PDF format or in Excel, because we understand, again, like James said earlier, is, hey, there are all kinds of tools out there for you to make reports very beautiful looking. So we'll export it to Excel. That way you can create all the pie charts and bar graphs that you want to your heart's desire. So you'll have kind of the raw data in order to look at it in different ways. Next, this next icon, which is aircraft, the last two actually, aircraft and personnel, only administrator level people can see those icons. They don't exist for line pilots. And it makes sense, right? Because here under aircraft, this is where you're going to administer your fleet as it grows, right? So the first 5 columns here are pretty much standard for our system. And you can pick and choose. Again, if you don't want call sign, then we don't put a call sign on here for you. But this is how you're going to set up your aircraft. And if you want to do weight and balance in Flight Duty Tracker, we can do that as well. And then all these columns here to the right are up to you again as well. So we can track certain maintenance things. So we're not a maintenance tracking program per se, like we don't do component tracking. There are so many great pieces of software out there that does that. But we will track things that are important for a pilot, like next inspection due or the next item due, that sort of thing. And we can give them warnings on the flight entry about that. So if there's 2.3 hours left on an inspection, we can show that to the pilot as well, just so they have an idea. There is that capability within the CAD as well. So probably the real stopgap would be the CAD. And if you're not using the CAD and you're only using Flight Duty Tracker, then you'll have another option here as well. Double the effort. VOR checks, that's something you guys probably do frequently, I would guess. So you can put that VOT in here as well and have that pop up. So when the pilot does do it and they update the date on flight entry, it'll update this here as well. So the next pilot that jumps in the aircraft can see that, oh, it was done yesterday, for instance. And then lastly is personnel. So we kind of touched on it before. Let me just show you a pilot, what it looks like to administer a record of a pilot. So you have basic information up here, up on top. The categories here are established by you. I mean, we have the obvious ones, check airman, chief pilot, DO, PIC, whatever. You're going to tell us what you want here, and then you're also going to tell us what type of access each of these checkboxes should have, right? So if you have a lead pilot, they probably don't have as much access as, say, the chief pilot does. And then, of course, the lowest access would be that PIC, right? So we'll set that up for you as well. And then we have these different sections here, and this is where you're going to put in that information that you saw for the master training tracking report. So the medical, we can do more fields. If you want to capture their birth date, we can put that stuff on there as well. Ratings, we can do more ratings or less, whatever. Again, if you're kind of noticing the theme here, it's all about customizing the system. We know not every operator looks the same, so we try to set it up the best we can for each one. Master training tracking, so that was that colorful report we saw here. So all of these dates comes from, or a lot of them I should say, come from master training tracking. So the right-hand column is that core training stuff. And again, these are fields that you're going to tell us what's important for you. We'll put that into the system for you.
Right, and then you said, can you put those documents or those trainings in there so it automatically records those dates, or are these all manual entries after?
So not yet, right? So today, master training tracking is manual entry, and you'll have to manually enter when you did the training. So here you would use our training events window. So you'd enter those things. In our next major feature release, these two will be connected. So your check pilot would come in here and do, hey, I did a recurrent flight on so-and-so on this date. Well, we know who so-and-so is, and we know what their base month is, so we'll automatically populate the expiration date for master training tracking. In fact, this will probably kind of go away, and all that stuff would be done in the background. So you'll just have to enter the training event, and we'll tell you when the expiration is due. But that's coming in the next big update we do.
Okay, perfect. What's the time frame on that one?
It should come out within this year. Yeah, we're targeting this year. Okay. So that's training, and competency is basically the same thing, right? But here we're going to do competency tests, which is like the 8410. So when you give a check ride, you fill out your 8410 and you'll scan it and upload it. But then the information will go here. So when did the check ride occur? What type of check ride was it? You can type that in there, and the hours and all the other information that you need for that competency test. So the documents, which is I kind of described just briefly, looks basically the same as the library, right? It's set up very similar, but each pilot has their own documents area. So we know that the FAA, if you decide to go electronic record keeping, by the way, our system is 100% compliant with that. And I would say 2/3 of our customers have the op specs for electronic record keeping using our system. But one thing you're going to have to do is you're going to have to scan their driver's license, their medical, their certificates, and then upload those, right? You always have to have a copy of that. So you'll scan and upload them to each pilot's individual record here. And again, we use the same setup. So we tag it. So you would tag it driver's license or certificate or medical. That way you can quickly and easily see. And then you can also sort the list based on who added it or when did they add that file.
So you're probably going to laugh when I ask you this question because I'm not the aviation expert, right? But let's say their driver's license expires and we have to upload a new one. Do you just delete the old one off or put the new one up? Or do you have to keep the old one for a certain period of time?
No, you don't have to. No, you can delete that. The only thing that you have to keep forever is the initial 8410 check ride. Well, there's some other forms as well, but the very first time you give a guy their 8410, their initial check ride, you have to keep that copy forever. But otherwise, every recurrent check ride after that, you would delete the old 8410 and make a record of it. That's it.
Oh, okay, perfect.
All right. So that's what a pilot record looks like. If we look at medical staff or I think this one's a medical staff. Yeah, a nurse. So the blue ones here are medical staff. So again, that's an option, an add-on option for Flight Duty Tracker. We can add that to your system as well. We use the same paradigm, right? So we have crew categories instead of just categories. You would tell us what you want, nurse, medic. We have OCC, flight follower, flight dispatcher, mechanics. I think most of our customers are tracking something to do with non-pilot people as well. So there are all kinds of different things here. And you can track as much detail or as little as you want. So some operators just want their name, what type of crew they are, and then what are we tracking training-wise. So for this is CTS, which is computer training, and then rotor safety briefing, which is due every 2 years. So that's what they're tracking, right? So they'll get a reminder of that. And then you can do the same thing where you can track competency tests. So if you're testing them every 2 years, you can put in when the test was or the check ride. And then when you do training, you can also record each training event as well. And same thing with documents. You don't have to give them access to the system. So you can create this account in here and track the things about them. And they never need to log, they don't have to log in. That's entirely up to you if you want your medical staff to log in. And then you'll decide what exactly they get to see, right? So if you're letting your medical people log in, they don't need flight entry. Maybe they don't need the schedule or reports. Maybe the only thing you want them to have access to is one report. So the only thing they'll see is this one icon. And when they go to reports, they'll see the one and only report that they're allowed to look at, for instance, if that's what you decide to do. And that's the level of detail we can go down to in Flight Duty Tracker. And then lastly, we have non-pilot or non-crew people, and which we call staff. So here you can set up a staff member. It's this brilliant, maybe this is salmon color, I don't know. So you would put them in here into the system, and all you're doing is you're assigning their level of access to each one of these icons here, each one of the pages of Flight Duty Tracker. So read-write access would be like full access, or you hide it from them completely, or maybe they only have read-only where they can only look at it, but they can't touch anything, kind of thing. POIs, oftentimes now we're seeing, or I shouldn't say oftentimes, more often now, POIs are asking for an account in Flight Duty Tracker. And the reason they're doing that, you may shudder when I say those words, many people do, but most POIs now, when they do their quarterly audit of an operator, you know how it is. They probably have like 10 or 15 operators. The last thing they want to do is drive everywhere to go do their quarterly audit, where if they could do that from their desk, they will, right? So you can give them access. But when you do that, make sure you click the 30-day history limit. So they can only see back 30 days. No matter what they do, if they try to run a report, it'll only give them the last 30 days. If they try to look at a load manifest, last 30 days, that's it. And then you can give them whatever type of access you want from beyond that as well. And that's the system in a nutshell. I know there's a lot to consume here between the two products. I'm sure you'll have questions as it starts to sink in on you. But if you have anything now, I'm ready to answer.
No, I actually don't personally. Definitely, Scott, if we can get that link in a format that I can have Kyle click on it so he can finish the recording. And then go from there. I'm sure he'll have a couple extra questions.
Yeah, it's fine. And it takes a while to process this, so you may not see it till tomorrow with the
yeah, that's fine.
2 hours worth of it takes a while.
Yeah. I don't know if it's you guys just gonna throw it like on, I don't know if you guys have like a whatever channel or media sharing platform you guys utilize, or is just sending the whole file to something he can click and stream to or whatever. That's fine.
Right. Yeah. We don't have a YouTube channel, but I will.
Oh, the private YouTube channel. Yeah.
I mean, normally we've just had the file available from our site to download it, but I'll look at different avenues to see what looks better, because I do know that this is going to be a fairly large file.
Oh yeah,
for sure. No, that's, I really appreciate it. If Scott, if you could kind of throw me together the quote for what access to a system like this would be, it's going to be 15 operators essentially, for the flight and duty, with only 5 pilots, but there's a potential for maybe expanding this. Do you guys have the ability to build this out or segregate down to different companies within one program? So like if it was a 135, like a charter operator with pilots that were pulling duty on both the charter side and then the air ambulance side, have the ability to kind of separate those out, or would it be individual systems?
Are you talking about from the pilot standpoint?
Correct. Yeah. So if we had a pilot that was doing both.
And this is under the same certificate, or is this a different certificate?
Same certificate, yeah. And so the hours and stuff would be fine, but I'm thinking like the report basing and the like the incident reports, things of that nature.
We could explore. It depends on how big of a difference it is. If it's the same certificate, your POI will probably require you to use the same system. We do have other operators that there's a master company and then they own multiple certificates. And at one time, they were operating everything under one flight duty tracker, but their POI made them break it up, right, between each separate certificate. And that's why I say you'll probably want to run this all under one. But there's some customization that we can do, that if a pilot is only like a charter person, they don't really care about the medical aspects. There are things that we can do on our end to make that a little less intrusive in that type of scenario for the pilot.
Okay. So Scott, yeah, and so Scott, is it by user then, access to the system? Is that how the quoting works?
From the CAD side, we have 2 pricing options: either based on the number of seats you need, concurrent seats into the system, or based on completed transports. And what I will do is send you an estimate, including the flight duty tracker, that shows the price sheet on everything, so that you can see what it is. With the CAD system, if you go on a seat basis, the CAD comes with a minimum of 5 seats, but the map seats are as many as you want. Doesn't have to be a one-to-one relationship. And then with the price per completed, if you go that route, it breaks it down based on I think about every 20 or so it goes to a different level. But the more you do, the less expensive each one is, and they do come with 10 CAD and 10 map seats for the price per completed.
Sure. I guess if we circle back to that initial question related to the non-transporting tracking, so like that one call center for the hospital.
Yeah, and I think I don't know if there's really a way for us to track that otherwise. It's always been part of the seats. I mean, if you're just going to track a patient within Flight Vector, it's always been part of it. So I'm going to say that there's not going to be any additional charge on that, no matter what pricing model you select.
Okay. Yeah, well then, yeah, I'll look forward to the quotes. I really appreciate your guys' time. This was very informative. This is great.
Oh, good. No problem. And like I said, it'll be tomorrow when that gets to you. I have a few more things I got to clean up tonight, so I may not get the estimate out tonight, but I will do it tomorrow with whatever I get with the video.
Yeah, no, yeah, that sounds good. No super major rush. I mean, we got a little bit of leeway time here, so.
Okay.
All right. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, no, I
Yes,
appreciate
thanks,
it. I appreciate it, guys. Thanks.
And thanks, Steve. And we'll
Yeah,
talk
no
later.
problem. Okay. We'll see you.
All right.